I'm going to talk about more on the side of like running native Linux games or like maintaining like older legacy software on Linux from the point of view of Lutris. So currently what we've been doing since the start is basically we have this thing called the Lutris runtime, which is a collection of .so files that we ship with the Lutris clients that help keep compatibility with a bunch of games which we do not know like what dependency they depend on. So we ship a bunch of stuff that's more or less helpful now. But yeah, we have something that's currently based on Ubuntu 18.04. We're working on migrating that to Debian 10, and it's very similar to what's like the Steam runtime, the V1 of the Steam runtime has been doing. So like the Scouts runtime. So there are like other runtimes, Steam runtimes like the Sniper and the Soldier, which are like different methods, which are like closer to what we would want to do in the future. So the problems with this kind of runtime is that it breaks very easily. We can't ship everything in it. So if we wanted to ship GTK stuff or like very glibc stuff or Xorg, that would probably not work. We've tried to do that and it was like a failure. So there's like a lot of stuff that we cannot just ship, or we would need to maintain patches for that. I mean, Valve has been doing that, but we didn't want to go like into deep, and so we've decided to limit the components of the runtime. And the hard thing is like it depends on what distro you're running the runtime on, and it has a tendency to break very easily. And usually you will notice like Arch Linux users will notice like breakage the first because they have like most up-to-date packages. So if a breakage will happen, it usually happens on Arch or Fedora like first. So yeah, we are looking into like new solutions. For example, like Snap and Flatpak. So we're at the Ubuntu Summit, so you're going to ask me about the Snap. Well, sorry, but there's like no Snap yet. It's currently being worked on actively. I have someone who like join in and has done a bunch of work on the Snap. There's like a project on Launchpad called Lutris Snap. So Samir Sharma is the one who has been working on it. That is great, but also it's like not ready for use yet. So if you know about Snap, if you want to help develop that, I mean, that would be very welcome. I know that Samir has been hitting a lot of issues, and they are very similar to the kind of issues we had to deal with Flatpak. But we're going to talk about Flatpak. Anything that applies to Flatpak should also apply to Snap when the Snap is out. So so when the Steam Deck came out, I ask Valve for a Steam Deck, and they were very generous, and they sent me one very quickly, so I could QA Lutris on the Steam Deck and get the Flatpak ready. So that was really the beginning of the Lutris Flatpak was for the Steam Deck. But the problem is we need to have, so we use the thing called runners, which are basically like emulators, like engines, Wine, and all those things are used to run games. The problem is if you, the traditional way that Lutris works, we have to ship every dependency for every runner into the Lutris Flatpak. Otherwise, since it's a sandbox, it's not going to work. So recently we've pushed like a feature that allows Lutris to use Flatpak runners. So if you install, for example, one of those runners like on the side, it will be detected by Lutris, and you can use that instead of the one we ship with the Lutris client. So we have like something that we ship ourselves, but you don't have to rely on that. You can also use the Flatpak. Wine is currently inside the Lutris Flatpak. And yeah, also we have like the ability to, I mean, just like the runners, it doesn't have to be a Lutris runner. You can also install any game that's on FlatHub in Lutris, like even like Lutris in Lutris if you want. I mean, that's weird, but you can still do it. Yeah, you can install like any game that's on Flatpak. We have a filter that will just show you games, but it would be very easy to remove that filter and show you every Flatpak available, and Lutris be like a front end for FlatHub. So native games, they have to run on inside the Flatpak environment. So that means we have a huge amount of dependencies to add. So even though Lutris uses GTK, we still need to use to ship Qt5. We need to use to ship like Mono. We need to ship like a Java. If you want to play Minecraft, for example, we need to have like this inside the Flatpak. Otherwise, in sandbox, it wouldn't work. That means that the build time for Lutris is huge compared to other Flatpaks. It's like an hour, more than an hour long. I checked like other programs like DOSBox, I think is like 2 minutes. So yeah, it's like super painful to ship because it's so long to build. So yeah, what's if you know like the offspring, they said like you have to keep them separated, and that's what the goal is. It's I had some pushback on that. Like people didn't want like to open like the sandbox, like open holes in the sandbox, but eventually that doesn't. Well, if we want to solve the issues, we have to be able to get out of the sandbox. So now Lutris is able to run like Flatpak spawn and run commands from the host. And usually it's to be able to run other Flatpaks. I mean, we don't really care about running commands on the host operating system. It's mostly to run other Flatpaks. So we can install Flatpaks. We can, I don't think we have stuff to remove Flatpaks, but the main feature is to be able to run Flatpaks. And also, I mean, the nice thing we will have, like eventually, is specialized Flatpaks. I don't know if there would be like a Flatpak like by its own, or just a Flatpak runtime, or a next extension, or something like that. I'm not even sure, like really sure of the implementation. But we would have like specialized environments for running native games, and like we would have like several of them. So we could have like a 32-bit container. We could have like a 64-bit one. We could have something that's really aimed at running like Java or Mono. All those kind of special edge cases. We could have something that's more geared to games released in like late 90s. We could have something that's more like for more recent games. And that opens up a lot of possibilities to not be like contained to a single Flatpak. So we could ship the Flatpak of Lutris, and it would have like the GTK stuff, and that's pretty much it. It would be like a lot faster. Since we have this integration with FlatHub, a lot of open source games have already this kind of integration. I mean, it makes them really easily available. A lot of native games that you will want to play will have some open source clients. So, for example, Quake 3, for example, has like a bunch of all the Quake games, for that matter, have open source implementations, and that's a solution to run them in a container. One solution that we could approach, I mean, that's something I've imagined. So we have Wine. Wine is a reimplementation of Win32 for Linux. I mean, you can run Wine in Windows, I think, maybe. But we could have something potentially similar to run Linux programs on Linux, but like a different Linux, like a Linux from a different era. Something that's rarely known is that you have like arcade machines that are Linux based. So the Sega Lindbergh, or even there was, so you think that the first like Linux version of Counter-Strike is like the one that was shipped for like by Valve, like on with Steam on Linux. Well, no, it was Counter-Strike in 2003 shipped by Namco, and that was a Linux native build. So there's like a very shady emulator called TechnoParrot, and TechnoParrot is basically MAME, but for more modern arcade games. Arcade games now, they're basically PCs. They haven't really used Linux in a while for arcade games, but yeah, that used to be the case. Like you have Outrun 2, that's a Linux game. There's like a few other ones. Sega had a machine that was pretty much just Linux-based with NVIDIA hardware. So yeah, that's still like pretty involved. I don't know if that will happen someday, but I think that would be like a cool idea, and that might be like a viable solution in the future. But also, well, we're like seeing, I mean, I've just come out of the RISC-V talk. There's also like a Raspberry Pi 5 being released. We're moving away, or like in some parts, from the x86 architecture. So having this kind of compatibility layer is kind of like an obstacle. So what we could rely on instead is like just emulation or like a virtualization more, like XMU does. So XMU is like an Xbox, like the original Xbox emulator, and it's basically a patch version of QEMU. So even though it runs like on the same architecture, like it's like was Pentium 3, like for the first Xbox, I imagine like something very similar would be possible for like running Linux. I've done some experiments. Here we don't see it like really well, but that's the game Rune, released by Loki Games, running an Ubuntu 6.06 in QEMU, and it's very slow. It runs at 480 by like 480p. Yeah, it is not great for gaming, but I did get some good results with like 2D games, for example. So that's kind of acceptable. I have yet to test because in QEMU has support for the first Radeon graphics card, and I have yet to try that because usually I try like with libvirt. For some reason they haven't merged like the option to activate like the first Radeon in libvirt, so I have to try it out with like QEMU by itself, like by typing a script or something like this. But that would be a solution for like very old games. Yeah, so what is really the interest in running Linux native games? Because we've seen like a lot of we've seen like a talk from like a Proton talk. Like there's been a lot of focus on the Windows games lately, and if you want to play a game that was released on Linux like years ago, like 10 years ago or 15 years ago, your best bets, even if it's like an open source game that hasn't been maintained a lot, but your best bet is to just run the Windows version, because that will solve a lot of problems. Win32 is the only stable ABI on Linux. Like, go to RX talk like later, and maybe we'll touch a little bit on that. But if you want stability, if you just want to game, really the Windows version will save you a lot of troubles. But from a preservation and historical perspective, I mean, Lutris has really become something. The goal is really to preserve video games, and like Linux games are also part of like our Linux history, and we kind of want to keep that around. So it's for that reason that I would like to have some solutions to run Linux games, just as we have like MAME to run like old computers or like old arcade boards. Yeah, it's almost yeah, and usually when we had like ports, like Linux ports, they received like very little support. So it's usually like contracting jobs. And once that port is done, it's like pretty much abandoned. So yeah, it's like not really great for like for maintaining stuff that works. What can we expect in the future? We have like OpenGL is like going away eventually. I don't know. Like we're getting like really good results from Zinc. Box 86 and Box 64 would be like good solutions for like the future architectures. We want really to keep x86 around because like most games written like whether they're like Linux or Windows, they will be like targeting x86 or x64. That will be useful. What we don't have right now is some compatibility layer to deal with like OSS, which is like an ancient audio API for Linux. We've had it for like OSS to ALSA, OSS to Pulse Audio. We don't have yet OSS to Pipewire. I don't know if that will be useful at some point, but I mean, might be. And also one thing I'm kind of worried about is like CD drive emulation. Like there's a lot of games that were released in optical like medium. CDEMU is a great software. I love it. It emulates actual optical drives. It's, to my knowledge, it's the only way to play games that have like CD audio tracks. It's the only way, if you have like an ISO of a game, it's the only way to get the music for those games. So I would like to get CDEMU like getting into like Ubuntu into Fedora, because currently it's like nowhere. It's like you have to add a PPA, you have to add like a copper repository to get CDEMU into your distribution. So I would like to have like some support. I don't know if it's possible to have this in Flatpak or Snap, since it's like very low level. But yeah, I would like to have this software like more recognized. So yeah, it was very speculative, like based like on future developments. Currently, we're not like based on anything. So I'm open to like any suggestion, any like if you have like ways that we could solve those problems, I'm really open to hearing them. I know I haven't talked about this like a lot, but also doing something that's closer to the Steam runtime, the new ones like Sniper. I don't know if like Sniper is the newest one, or is it Soldier? Yeah, Soldier. Maybe that would be a solution, like just copying Soldier and using that. But yeah, I'm looking for solutions. I'm looking for improving, keeping. It's kind of ironic that's the most difficult thing to keep around in regards of game preservation are the games for the platform that we're running at this time. So Linux game on Linux has become the biggest challenge of Linux gaming, basically. So that's going to be a lot of efforts that's going to be put into that direction.
Is this thing on? Is this on? Would Flatpak runtimes, would that be a solution then that could make that work? How you can target it, like if you build them into a Flatpak and have a Flatpak, like a legacy Flatpak runtime?
I asked the question like in the maybe, I'm not sure, but also I was told that maintaining a Flatpak runtime is a lot of work, and it's maybe not like I'm not sure. Yes, I was considering that, but I've been told that's maybe not the solution.
So yeah, you mentioned using the Steam runtime, the modern one, so Sniper, Soldier, and now like Medic is upcoming one. I think that might be a little bit better solution for what you're trying to do, because they have a way of punching holes into the host system, so they pick up the up-to-date glibc if you have a newer one, and the same goes for the graphic drivers. And also you can like use overlay.fs to overlay whatever extra modules you want on top of it. So instead of having this huge Flatpak that builds 1 hour, you can have like a smaller runtime that just runs Lutris, and if you need mono, you can overlay on top of it. So this is something to consider.
Yeah, thanks.
Hi, so I'm Merlin from Snapcrafters. We're a community that builds Snap packages. I think we should talk because we have a lot of runtimes already available for Wine, for KDE, for GPU drivers that might actually be really interesting for you.
For the two says yes. You actually